How many of us train the lower back? How many of you guys actually think to yourself, okay, what is the most limiting body part in my body? I know for myself, I don't know if that's correct for you guys as well. When I fail a squat or a deadlift, it's because I've lost stability, I've lost positioning, I've lost strength in my lower back. That's what makes me fail on both lifts. If you could say somehow that your lower back is never going to break form, it's always going to be there, I'll probably grind out weights until the cows come home. The thing that scares me always is that I feel, that's the only thing I ever, think about, I feel the lower back is losing its arch or it's losing its optimal positioning. When I start to feel that t-shirt pulling on me or that, part of my body, when I feel like I'm losing that straightness and the arch is falling and I'm starting to kind of bend, posteriorly pelvic tilt, I drop the weights. Automatically drop the weights, because I know if I continue to do that, it's only going to get worse. The moment that momentum starts to go, the moment you start to round, it's very, very hard to stop that rounding. So I feel like if I had a stronger lower back, I'll be a stronger athlete altogether. On the squat, when the bar falls a little bit forward, when the optimal bar path isn't somehow happening, the first thing that kind of goes is that lower back, right? If you think about it, it's all about levers and moment arms and whatever. So the bar's sitting on your back, it's a long back. Some people have really long torsos, some people have short torsos, but the bar's sitting on top. The more you lean over, the more pressure is going to be on your lower back. So, and obviously we know the more you lean over, the more you can support weight. Like we are stronger in a deadlift pattern than we are in a squatting pattern. So if your lower back goes, it becomes really, really difficult. I know that Louis Simmons, the great man himself, he spoke about training the lower back and training the core, training the anterior core, the abs. That's, he spoke a lot about that. On Sunday, I did, for the second time in the week, rack pulls. And amongst few exercises that I think rack pulls are amongst the best exercises for lower back. Obviously there's the good morning. The good morning scares the hell out of me, and I've said that many times, and I always feel like good morning should be trained really light, like sets of 20, that kind of thing. Sets of 10 bare minimum. It's just because I feel like you are trapped. It's so much easier to have the weight in your hands. If something goes wrong, you just let go. But when the bar is on your back like that, you are freaking trapped. And I know Louis Simmons and I know many, many other people have snapped their backs using good mornings. I know Bruce Lee's another famous case of actually really injuring his back, and he was like in bed for like 6 months or something like that. So I always have this respect, I have this fear towards good mornings. Squatting and deadlifting, any way you do it, you're going to be training your lower back. But to really overload the back, I feel like rack pulls, RDLs are great for that. Anything with the bar is in your hands. Today, I don't have soreness, which is great, because last time I trained the rack pull last Wednesday, I was sore for days, man. It wasn't until Sunday that I was actually able to do something. On Sunday, I've tried it again, and now it's Tuesday, and I feel pretty good. I feel like I have some resilience. The soreness is not there, but I feel a mean lower back pump. Going through the squatting today, I feel it. It's clearly fatigued. And the whole time I'm thinking to myself, man, if this portion of my body was stronger, like how the hell are you going to be weaker with a stronger lower back? I feel like that is the one area that's going to let you down. At least for me. I don't know if you guys agree. Maybe you guys have different weaknesses. But the lower back is something that always goes for people, man. It's probably the most injured body part in the gym, in the workforce, in the workplace, definitely, especially like in nursing, man. Like, man, people are snapping their backs left, right, and center. You're walking for hours on end. You're never going to hip flexion. You're never going to a squat. You're always kind of leaning over a bed. So limited range of motion, you're cold, and then all of a sudden the patient pulls on you, or you have to awkwardly do something, roll a patient or lift a patient up the bed or something like that. It's always awkward, outstretched positioning. You got to slide people up the bed, and then it goes. It's that rotation, that twisting motion while loaded that kind of does people in. So I feel like even if you're not into training, having a stronger lower back is going to make life easier. It's going to make life safer and whatnot. But for people that are training and people that want to get stronger, I feel like that needs to be emphasized, man. Obviously, the abs, are partners with the lower back. That is the most vulnerable part of our body, whether it's your weakness or your strength or whatever. If you look at the structure of the human body, there's ribs for the thoracic spine. We don't really have anything on our neck. So it's the cervical spine and the lumbar spine that's the weakest portion, because in between there's ribs. Below that, below the ribs, you got the lumbar spine, and then below that you have the pelvis. So that's rigid structure. And then the limbs are, straight bones, right? Long bones. So it's kind of like a stable thing. The spine is just a whole bunch of little islands of bones, mashed up together, held by all these different other structures, and there's a lot of leaking of power through there. So the biggest leak of power, I feel like, is the core. Is that, lumbar region. You got the abs at the front and the side and whatever, and then you got the back muscles at the back, lower erectors. So I feel like if you can get that area almost like a natural belt, really, really tight and strong, you're going to prevent leaking of power. So structurally, we are the weakest in the lumbar region. And part of the whole lumbar complex is the lower erectors. It's that resistance to that lumbar flexion. How many of us actively think about that? I know we all deadlift and squat, and a lot of us concern ourselves with those movements. But what about you actually train it specifically and overload that movement? Rack pulls, for me, my lord, man, it is a lower back attack. I don't know why it's so much different to a rack pull, but it's that stop start when you not even like the last time I did rack pulls, I wasn't fully resting the bar and breaking it every rep. But even if you're tapping it, it does something. It's that shaking, it's that instability that the safety pins offer, and each time you do that, you kind of have to stabilize. I don't know. Sometimes I think to myself, maybe the whole thing here is I get stronger when my lower back muscles are stronger. I get weaker when they're weaker. Obviously, there's a lot more going on, but if you think about the potential of us as lifters, how much power we produce in our legs, what if we can entertain the concept that we're actually a lot stronger than we're putting into the bar because of the leaking of power? And I feel like the biggest leak in the system is the lower back. It's the lower back. I know certainly for me, as soon as I feel instability, I kind of let go. And even my own central nervous system will deregulate power to the muscles because there is instability in the spine. Somewhere in the spine, we are threatening our freaking survival, right? So if you are really out of position, the body's going to want you to stop, and it's going to, deregulate the central nervous system. But it's something that I'm finding really interesting. So I don't know whether you guys actively think about lower back training. I know, man, for the longest part, I didn't really care about lower back training. It was just a side effect of squatting and deadlifting. But now I'm thinking, maybe what if I get after it, man? What if I get after it with 45 hypers, rack pulls, RDLs, like anything that, lowers the hell out of the lower back. And I feel like small ranges of motion allow you to do that safely. With a full range deadlift and the squat, it's much harder because there's so much other stuff going on. But with something like a rack pull, something like a 45 hyper, back raises in the GHD, really pump the hell out of that lower back. It's interesting. Anyway, let me go work out my back a little bit more. I'm going to go to work right now. So I'll catch you guys on the other side. Appreciate you guys. Catch you next one. Peace out.